A billion-dollar car company is standing at the edge of a cliff they built themselves. Bugatti, one of the most prestigious names in automotive history, is about to face consequences that could reshape the entire supercar industry. The European Union's new right to repair legislation isn't just coming for them. It's arriving with the full weight of continental law behind it. If you want to follow this story as it unfolds, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because what happens next will send shockwaves through every luxury manufacturer in the world. Here's where this begins. Matt Armstrong, a well-known automotive YouTuber, acquired a wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport. The insurance company had already written it off. Totaled. Finished. But Matt saw something different. He saw a project. He began to rebuild, documenting every step for his audience. And when he needed parts to complete the restoration, he did what any reasonable person would do. He contacted Bugatti directly. They refused. Not some parts. Every part. They would not sell him a single component. But Bugatti didn't stop at silence. Their CEO recorded a public statement, explaining that the Chiron should only be rebuilt in authorized facilities. Only a few places in the world have the right equipment. Only a few people in the world have the right training. That was the message. That was the line drawn in the sand. And that is precisely where this story transforms into something much larger than a YouTube video about rebuilding a hypercar. This fight didn't start with Matt Armstrong. It won't end with him either. For decades, independent mechanics across Europe have slammed into the same wall. The difference is they didn't have millions of followers watching when it happened. They didn't have a platform to expose what was being done to them. They just had a customer waiting for a repair and a manufacturer telling them the answer was no. Consider what this really means. You purchase a Bugatti. You pay millions for it. The title transfers to your name, but the manufacturer still controls who gets to touch it. The moment you step outside their approved network, your warranty evaporates. Every supercar brand is operated under this same philosophy. Bugatti, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche. They built empires on exclusivity. And then they weaponized that exclusivity against the very people who made them wealthy. For years, nobody had the power to challenge the system. Independent mechanics complained, but complaints don't rewrite laws. Car owners felt trapped, but frustration doesn't open courtroom doors. That reality is ending. The European Union has spent years building a case against these practices. They've collected testimony from mechanics who were denied access to diagnostic tools. They've documented cases where software locks bricked vehicles after independent repairs. They've listened to owners who watched their warranties dissolve simply because they chose a local shop over a distant dealership. Stories like Matt's weren't just viral moments to them. They were evidence. The EU right to repair law is no longer theoretical. It's arriving with a deadline, and Bugatti is running out of calendar pages. When this legislation takes full effect, the rules change permanently. Manufacturers will no longer be permitted to block independent repairs on vehicles they've sold. The practice of refusing to sell spare parts to non-affiliated mechanics will become illegal. Software designed to disable vehicles after unauthorized service will violate continental law. Voiding warranties simply because an owner chose their own mechanic will carry legal consequences. Turning away a car because someone outside the network touched it first will no longer be defensible. Independent mechanics will gain the right to access the same diagnostic tools that dealerships use. The data required to service modern vehicles will no longer be hidden behind proprietary walls. Parts that were once exclusively available through dealer networks will become accessible to qualified shops everywhere. Repair pricing will face new scrutiny, preventing manufacturers from punishing owners who sought service elsewhere. The power to decide who is qualified to work on a vehicle will no longer rest solely with the company that built it. A small garage in a rural town, run by a mechanic with decades of experience, will have the same legal standing as a flagship dealership in a major city. The playing field that manufacturers spent decades tilting in their favor is being leveled by legislation. The timeline is clear. Comply before the deadline or face the consequences. And for Bugatti specifically, those consequences carry weight that extends far beyond fines. Europe isn't simply a market for Bugatti. It's their origin, their identity, their foundation. The soul of this company lives in Molsheim, France, a small Alsatian town that has produced some of the most extraordinary machines ever to touch asphalt. The brand was born on European soil. It was built by European hands. It carries European heritage in every curve of its bodywork. The EU understands this leverage completely. They're not threatening a company that could simply pivot to other continents. They're confronting a manufacturer whose entire mythology is rooted in a region now demanding compliance. European regulators aren't concerned with the quad-turbocharged W16 engine. They don't care about top speed records or acceleration figures. Their focus is singular and unwavering. Citizens should have the right to repair what they've purchased with their own money. Here is where decades of corporate strategy collapse into liability. The system Bugatti constructed to exclude people like Matt, to lock out independent mechanics, to maintain total control over their vehicles long after sale. That system is becoming evidence against them. Every part they refuse to sell is documented. Every warranty they voided is recorded. Every software lock they implemented left a digital trail. Independent mechanics across Europe will soon have legal standing to demand access to parts and tools they were previously denied. Builders and restorers will have grounds to obtain components that manufacturers refuse to provide. Car owners will possess the freedom to choose any qualified technician without sacrificing their consumer protections. The era of selling a vehicle and then wielding it as leverage over the buyer is reaching its conclusion. Matt Armstrong knocked on Bugatti's door, and they pretended nobody was home. The European Union didn't knock. They arrived with a key. But the stakes extend further than compliance deadlines. Non-compliance isn't a simple fine that a billion-dollar company pays and forgets. The potential consequences include market exclusion, a complete ban from sales within the European Union, no new vehicles delivered, no dealership operations, no presence in the region that gave the brand its identity. Everything Bugatti built their reputation upon could be stripped away because they refused to adapt. And the exposure doesn't end at regulatory penalties. Every owner who was ever denied an independent repair now possesses potential grounds for legal action. Every mechanic who was locked out of work they were qualified to perform has a basis for claims. Every software restriction becomes courtroom evidence. Every refused part sale becomes a documented data point in litigation. The paper trail Bugatti created while constructing their closed ecosystem is transforming into the evidence that could dismantle it. The damage would extend beyond legal fees and settlements. Bugatti's entire brand proposition is built on desire, on the notion that owning one of their vehicles grants access to a world most people will never enter. Exclusivity isn't just a marketing approach for them. It's the foundation of their value proposition. But the moment Europe closes its doors to Bugatti, that carefully constructed image begins to fracture. The waiting list that stretched for years will start to empty. Collectors who paid $2 million for a Chiron will begin questioning whether that investment holds its value. The secondary market will feel the tremors. Reputation is the only currency Bugatti truly trades in, and the European Union is positioning itself to devalue that currency significantly. Every competitor is watching this unfold with intense focus. Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, Koenigsegg, Pagani. Every ultra-luxury manufacturer that has operated with similar closed-door policies is now calculating their own exposure. Because if the EU makes an example of Bugatti, nobody in this industry knows who faces scrutiny next. This has evolved beyond a single company's problem. This is an industry-wide reckoning. For decades, these manufacturers perfected a particular approach to customer relationships. They sold you the vehicle but retained control of everything inside it. Software you couldn't access, diagnostic systems you couldn't run, components that existed only within their proprietary ecosystem. They called this quality control. The European Union calls it market abuse. And the owners, the people who spent millions on a Chiron, a Veyron, a Devo, they were never treated as customers in the traditional sense. They were captives with a beautiful view. Every service interval led back to one location. Every warning light directed them to one network. Every worn component required one source. Molscium on Bugatti's terms, at Bugatti's prices, on Bugatti's schedule. That's not ownership in any meaningful sense. That's a subscription agreement nobody remembers signing. Now those same owners possess something they've never had before, Legal standing, the right to demand maintenance records, the right to question why their warranty was voided, the right to enter any courtroom within the European Union, and require Bugatti to provide answers under oath. Some of them will exercise those rights. Bugatti constructed an empire on the principle of exclusivity, but legislation just opened the gates. And once those gates open, they don't close again. The precedent will be set. The legal framework will be established. Future attempts to rebuild those walls will face immediate challenges. The choice remaining is binary: adapt before the deadline arrives, or lose Europe permanently. There is no third option. There is no negotiated middle ground. The EU has made their position clear, and that position isn't subject to debate. This story is far from over. Subscribe, tap the notification bell, and stay connected to this channel, because we'll be covering every development as it happens. When Bugatti makes their next move, when the EU responds, when the first